I was halfway through the man scan match report in the paper when the alarm went off. I wandered out of the cupboard to see every nurse and doctor run off to the isolation room. I never understood what everyone needed to go. There are other patients, you know. 2 nurses pulled the crash cart into the isolation room and the door slammed shut behind them. I sighed and looked at the time, 9 o'clock, still an hour before break. I grabbed the cleaning trolley and went to clean a patient's room. I was watching the news while cleaning the room. Some new version of flu was going round London. I wonder what animal they would name it after this time. Bear flu has a nice ring to it. The lady in this room seemed to be in a coma or something. Either way, it was my pick for what to watch my TV. I switched channels and put on the Jeremy Kyle show. It's like watching monkeys at the zoo. I saw the nurses walking out of the ISO room. The man had died. After my 10-foot o'clock cigarette break, I headed back into the ward through the waiting area. Why did they have to make the smoking area so far away? The first thing I noticed was the shouting. I looked down the corridor. There were 5 or 6 members of staff crowded around the isolation room, their faces shocked out of curiosity. I wondered, other expecting it to be a relative causing a scene again. As I got to the door, I was shocked to see 2 members of security pinning the patient who had passed away just over an hour ago to the ground. For such an old man, he was putting up one hell of a fight. A doctor, a young guy in his 20s, white shirt, red trousers. God knows why he was wearing red trousers, moved closer to the man and attempted to calm him down, saying he was in shock and that they were here to help. The patient responded by yanking free of the security guard and biting a chunk out of his hand. The young doc howled in pain and backed off as the guards themselves struggled to hold the man. It happened so quick, the guard holding the man down on the left hand slipped. The patient responds, launching himself at the throat of the guard on the right. He does not have time to cry out as whatever this thing is tears his windpipe out. Chaos ensues. Several people move forward to try and remove the patient from the guard. Several are bitten in the process. Others run either to phones for help or to get away from the man in front of them. I don't move. I stand there looking but not seeing the sight in front of me. The few who tried to help the guard have backed away. Nurses and doctors look at their injuries. The thing has its back to me. I hear these odd sounds like chewing, swallowing sounds. I gaggle, stops chewing. It turns. And I look into the face of death. The monster stands up to face me. Only seeing the man wheeled through on the trolley earlier. I could not tell how tall he was, but he was a little short, about 5 feet 8 inches, tubby, but the skin was grey like a storm cloud. No color, no life, no humanity in the eyes, just a blank, staring, hungry look. But the worst thing was the sound it made, a raspy growl as it took a step towards me. I didn't move. My mind raced, my heart beat. It took another step. I looked around for something, anything. I saw it. I grabbed it from the wall and swung it with all my strength. I could feel the thing's ribs crushing under the weight of it. Stumbled back into the ISO room, knocking over a chair as it went and sailing over the bed. I dropped the fire extinguisher. I stood there for a moment and watched as the monster got back to its feet. I looked it in the eye. I could see my own disbelief reflected back. I'm skinny, but I know a 9-liter fire extinguisher smashed into your ribs should keep you down for more than a few seconds. It moved towards me again, a slow lurch. I reached into the room for the chair, slammed the door shut and propped the chair against it. I looked into the room. The thing was looking at me through the glass and then proceeded to start bashing on it. I flipped the blind and turned round. Several people rushed forward towards the fallen security guard, but then proceeded to run back when the thing started banging on the door. The chair held it firm. One brave nurse stepped forward to examine the man, his white shirt stained with claret, his eyes still holding a look of surprise. She checked his pulse and shook her head. I sighed and then ran to the sink to vomit, judging by the sounds. I was not the only one. Shit. It came to me in a second, the other door into the ISO room. It was already at the last door and was pounding against it. I watched for a second. That second became 5, then 10. It was banging on a pull door. It rasped its fury and scratched at the glass, frustrated that we were so close yet so far. I don't know how long we stared. I grabbed the fire extinguisher again, and another doctor moved towards the door, seeming intent on opening it. An older balding doctor stopped him. The next couple minutes was a mix of pleas from staff for the thing to calm down and weeping of staff as wounds were examined. I just stood there and watched. I had seen too many movies, read too many books. This is not what it looks like. Zombies are not real. An hour later and everything was almost back to normal. Police had turned up and released the man from his room. One officer was bit in the process eventually. The patient was strapped to his bed. I overheard the odd conversation: sedatives no effect, no life signs. I have never seen anything like it. I was interviewed by the police. They said it was unlikely charges would be brought against me and arrangements were being made to take the man, and I use that term loosely, to a more secure hospital. Good riddance. My supervisor was there. He offered to send me home. I declined. I don't know why, maybe because we were short-staffed that day. Many who had been bitten or injured had to continue working after being stitched up. They were a good bunch of people carrying on like that, dedicated and caring no matter what they carried on. 2 hours later, 1 o'clock. I like to spend my lunch in the cleaner's cupboard. It's quiet in there, peaceful. Generally reading a zombie book, but I ignored that. Today, I had no appetite for more bloodshed. I plugged my headphones in, put on Carry On Wayward Son, closed my eyes and tried to forget. I opened my eyes and checked my phone. 2:30. Shit, I put my phone away, unplugged my headphones, and then I heard it. Screams, rasps, cries for help. My heart raced. It's here. I opened the door and looked out. Devastation greeted me. Blood. So much blood, bodies lying everywhere, people gathered round them, biting, feeding, eating. One looked up, noticed me. A blonde nurse's support, once attractive, but the beauty long faded, the left side of her face torn away, giving her the appearance of a long sneer as she looked at me. She was only 3 feet away. I moved to close the door, but she got an arm through, preventing me from closing it. I slammed the door repeatedly against her arm, but it would not move. Luckily, the other things seemed too preoccupied with my colleagues to assist her. But now she was on her feet and pressing her whole weight against the door. I pushed back as hard as I could. My face was so close to hers, around the lip of the door. I could feel her teeth gnashing the air, rancid breath. I turned away and looked for something, anything. A mop handle was all that was within reach. I grabbed it. I prodded it around the side of the door, pushing her away, easing the door closed, the door shut. I pulled the mop handle in with me. I locked the door and sat on a box of paper towels. The banging on the door began. The only entrance, the only way out.